Hey y'all, it's Amanda and this is my Texas Zone 8 garden, and today we're going to be talking about 5 tricks to make bigger, fuller hanging baskets. Okay, I'm excited. I have four hanging baskets total on my property. I have 3 on the back porch and I have 1 on the front porch. The ones on the back porch get a lot more sun than the ones on the front porch. So we're going to be focusing on those 3 baskets on the back porch today. Now my backyard faces southwest, so it gets a lot of afternoon sun. So that's going to be super important to consider when I'm working on the baskets. I do have all my baskets set up to drip, so that's something else I wanted to let y'all know, that I don't water my baskets by hand. I do them all by drip. So I just want to take y'all through the steps that I consider and I think about when I am creating hanging baskets. And then at the end of the video, we'll actually go ahead and put those baskets together. I'll show you the steps in person, and then I'll also show you the plants that I'm going to be putting in there. Now, one of the first things I do, number one, when I'm starting a hanging basket is I consider the size and the shape of the basket that I am wanting. Is the size of the basket appropriate for the space I'm hanging it in? Is the size of the basket appropriate for the hook that I might be hanging it from? That's super important too. You don't want a crazy heavy giant basket on a little sad little hook. Am I looking for something that's focused more on draping? Am I looking for something that's more of a round ball shape? Do I want a vintage look? Do I just want a clean, all greenery look? There are a lot of different things to consider, and so you definitely want to consider that ahead of time, thinking about the size, thinking about shape, and thinking about the location that it's in. I love to focus on vintage antique style wrought iron baskets. All 4 of the ones I have are that type of basket where I've purchased them from like an antique or a vintage sale or on Facebook Marketplace. I use a cocoa core liner in all of them, and that's worked great, and they last for years for me. Number 2 is you want to make sure you're picking out the best soil for your hanging baskets. I like to work with a really high quality potting soil. I like to mix in additional vermiculite or perlite, and I like to mix in compost to give me kind of a light, fluffy feel to the soil. The lightweight mix really helps with water retention within the basket, which is probably the most important thing that you'll have to consider regarding your basket. And it really kind of helps for all the plants we're going to be stuffing in, because these plants are going to go crazy and take up so much space with their roots. The next thing to consider with your hanging baskets is, are you feeding them? Are you going to be able to feed them and water them the correct way, in a way that's going to be beneficial to them, but also beneficial to you? Now, hanging baskets run out of nutrients faster than most plants, and it's because there's so much space for water to come out. So every time you water it, the water is trickling through the soil and it's pulling out nutrients with it when it drains out of the basket. Now, because that water is running out of the basket, it's taking with it the nutrients, but it's also the water's coming out quicker, which means that baskets are going to have to be watered more often. That's kind of like the double-edged sword with baskets, is they're so beautiful, but they take a lot of maintenance. They take pruning, they take watering, they take fertilizing. All of that's really important. You want to make sure that you're mixing in a slow release granular fertilizer, and you want to make sure that you are hitting your baskets maybe once every week to 2 weeks with a good quality liquid fertilizer to make sure that you're replenishing those nutrients that are flowing out with every watering. You never want to let your hanging basket dry out, like ever. Usually, if you let a hanging basket dry out, there's no recovering at that point. So you definitely want to make sure that you're doing that. During the hottest times of the year, my watering baskets get watered at least once a day, sometimes twice a day, especially when we're in their time when I have like 60 days of 100-degree weather in a row. That is really intense, and they definitely have to be really well paid. I have to pay attention to them, which is why I also have them set up on the drip irrigation so that they get, a really nice slow soak at least once a day during the hottest parts of the year. Now, soaking is the best thing for hanging baskets. Just coming in with your little handled water and, watering for a few seconds isn't necessarily going to get to all the dry pots. Ideally, you would want to be able to take off your hanging basket and dunk it into a container filled with water and just allow the basket to soak up water. That's not a reasonable solution for me because my hanging baskets are heavy and they're up high and I don't want to get up and down. So I utilize my drip irrigation system where it's got 3 to 4 emitters that go around the inside of the basket. It has a slow drip and it allows, because of that slow drip, it allows the soil time to soak up the water but instead of just flowing directly out of the container. All right, number 4 important thing is choosing the right plants for your basket. The number one thing you have to consider is location. Are you in the shade? Are you in the sun? Are you in part sun? You need to consider those things because we don't want to put shade plants in a really, really sunny area. You also want to consider, are you in an area where your baskets are going to get a lot of high winds, dust, that type of thing, because you definitely want to choose plants that are going to stand up to that kind of, rough weather like high winds instead of putting something in there that's really sensitive. Heavy rains are important too. Is your basket in an area where it's just going to get just pounded with heavy rains? That's something to consider. And of course, excessive heat. Is it out in the middle of the yard where it's just going to get pounded with heat 12 hours a day? You definitely want to make sure that you're picking things that are appropriate for the location that you're going to put your basket in. Now, when you are creating your basket or choosing the plants for your baskets, there's kind of 2 different directions you can go. You can go for a basket that is all about texture and kind of close-up appeal where it has 3 to 5 different varieties of plants and it's really heavily focused on, unique blooms and lots of texture. Or you can go in a different direction where you use one type of plant for the entire basket. And that is the kind of basket that's going to have more impact from further away. So if you're wanting to have that beautiful impact as someone's driving up to your house, you might select just one, Calibrachoa or alyssum or petunias, all one color to make it just a big, bold, larger statement. If you're more focused on, being able to view these up close and the intricacy and delicate blooms of lots and lots of different textures, then you can focus on 3 to 5 different varieties within your basket. Now, you also want to choose plants that are going to trail versus growing upright. You definitely want to put trailing plants on the outside rim of your basket. Those can be lantanas, creeping jenny, verbenas, dichondrophals, lantana, those are all really good draping ones. Petunias do really good. And then in the middle, you want to put something a little bit more upright, whether it is a decorative grass, more petunias work really good, upright petunias work good. You could also put things like nasturtiums, those drape coleus. There's a lot of different things that you can put, but you definitely want trailing ones towards the outside rim of the basket and something a little bit more upright in the center of the basket. I think a lot of people get caught up in just doing trailing, and then you end up having this bare spot in the middle of your basket, which isn't necessarily the worst thing in the world. I mean, especially if your basket's up high, nobody actually really sees that. But if your basket is in a place where you are going to be able to see the center, then you want to make sure that you put a plant in the center of the container. Okay, and then number 5, you want to make sure you have tons and tons of plants in your hanging basket. You have to realize that hanging baskets are very short-lived containers. And so we're going to go ahead and give them just a really big boost of color right off the bat and really put a bunch of plants in there and allow it to fill in quickly. And you want to do that quickly because the hotter it gets in your location, the more that hanging basket is going to fizzle out. Now, because hanging baskets they don't last as long as other containers might. A lot of times plants don't have time to get to their full grown shape and size. So that's why putting extras in to make it look fuller from the beginning is extremely helpful. You can also start by planting up a bunch of your hanging baskets earlier, put it in late winter, early spring, keep them in a greenhouse or, under some grow lights and get a jump start on your baskets so that as soon as you're able to bring them out for the spring, they are already beautiful, lush, and ready to go. Now, when we are stuffing in a bunch of plants, you're going to find that very quickly baskets are going to get overtaken by root growth. Now, once the plants, start to slow down in their growth as we get hotter in the season, the root growth will definitely slow down as well. If you see plants starts to struggle within your basket, you can go ahead and thin out the basket. You can cut out some of the plants and allow the other plants that are in there to have less competition in there. So don't think that once you plant up a basket, that's that's it. You don't have to do anything to it. You can take out and add more things, mix it up, whatever you want to do along the way. Now, my focus today is I'm going to put in plants that are going to look beautiful now. They're going to do great in spring, and then as we get hotter weather, they're going to fizzle out. But I'm going to already have some heat-loving summer plants in there as well that will take over once it starts getting hot, so that I don't actually have to mess with my baskets. I don't want to mess with them multiple times. I typically just allow them to go, and when they die out, they die out. They're done. I don't usually go back to replant them. Most of the time, they're going to last me through October into November, and then at about that time is when they start to, you know, really fizzle out as we get cooler weather. I feel like I'm doing a lot of this today. Let's talk about my baskets and how I'm going to go about mixing the soil to go in them. Okay, I usually have a hanging basket here, but the storm took it down, so it's down there. And then I've got this guy right here, which actually has some eggs in it. The eggs rotted. It's from a mourning dove, and they actually started a new nest back here. Let me put those eggs down so I don't drop those, because that would be rough. All right, I'm going to start by mixing up some soil. I'm going to start with some potting soil, and I'm going to add in compost. My potting soil is BM7, Burger BM7, and my compost is Vita Earth. So I've got that in there. I'm also going to add some perlite. Where did I put that? Oh, here we go. I'm going to add in more perlite to keep it light and fluffy. And then lastly, I'm going to add in Plant Tone slow release fertilizer. Now, of course, this is not the only way to do hanging basket. If you don't want to do this, don't do this. If you just want to put in some basic soil and you want to do liquid fertilizer, then do that, okay? I'm just trying to show you a perhaps more optimal way that you might be able to get your baskets to last longer and do better, be nice and full and beautiful for a longer amount of time. I'm going to come in here real quick too, in my hoary knife, and take out some of the old soil that's in this basket and break it up and mix it in with all of this. I reuse the soil a lot of times. A lot of people are asking me what I do with my old soil. I reuse it as much as possible. I just come back and I add more compost and I add more fertilizer, whatever I feel like I'm going to need in there, and I reuse the soil. Just not at a point in my gardening career or, you know, my family budget to throw away soil. I think that, you know, you can revitalize it. Also, I don't have a very big property, so am I just supposed to throw the soil like in the trash? Like, I don't know. So this works better for my needs, just to go ahead and repurpose the soil. And this has lots of roots in it from the past year. All these will continue to break down and create nutrients. All right, so here's my first hanging basket. It's got a cocoa core liner in there. I'm leaving the liner. I'm just going to come in here and start filling it. Maybe about halfway. I am going to put some additional slow release fertilizer in here. Okay, so for these containers, I actually grew a lot from seed, petunias and nasturtium to go in there. I purchased some lantana. And I also want to cherry pick from some of these containers. These have a peach verbena in here that I would like to pull out and then put that into my containers. These also have some creeping Jenny, which is excellent, and I would like to pull some of that out too. I'm redoing these containers anyway and repurpose these in my hanging baskets. So let's do that first. Let me see in here. All right, there's a verbena there. Right here, I've got some creeping Jenny. Let me get in here and see where that's at. All right, here's some creeping Jenny coming out. All right, here's some more creeping Jenny. So I've got those pulled. Also over here I have petunias that I've grown from seed, specifically the Triumph mix, which is absolutely gorgeous. These need to be deadheaded a little bit. Big, beautiful, gorgeous blooms, a mix of purples and whites and pinks. I've also got some, I thought these are Lilac Supreme, like Opera Lilac Supreme, I believe is their name. They grow beautiful and long, and they're supposed to be really great for hanging baskets. And then the last variety I have is, let's see if I can get one of these out of here. Lace Veil, and they're a beautiful white frilly petunia, which is great as well. Okay, so I've got the petunias, which are definitely more of a spring plant, and they will fizzle out at some point in time. Then we'll be tucking in some of the verbena, some of the creeping Jenny. I also have a lantana to put in the center of each basket. These lantana are proven winners. They're Luscious Berry Blend, 20 to 30 inches wide. Really wanted a bigger lantana plant that would fill in as the petunias start to wane in the heat. And let's see, this is an annual in our area, this particular lantana is, but sometimes my lantanas overwinter anyway, depending on how intense my winters are. And it is a full sun as well. So I've got that. And then the very last thing, which sounds like a ton of stuff, is I have some Climbing Phoenix nasturtium seedlings that I grew. And once I get the whole basket planted, then I want to tuck at least one of these in each container with the hopes that it will grow up the side of one of the hanging chains, or it'll grow over the edge. It's good for trailing or climbing up. Either one is great. Okay, so I've really kind of tucked myself into this like tiny little space over here. Let me move myself around a little bit. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to start with the lantana. That's going to go in the center with the hopes, once again, that this will be my wow summer plant that will come through. I'm going to loosen up the roots and spread them out a little bit. And it's not going to be completely under soil yet, but as I add more plants, it will fill in. Then let's go ahead and come through. I've got some creeping Jenny over here. I'm going to go ahead and give it a really good trim. It's going to look kind of harsh, and it's not going to look perfect right from the beginning on this Climbing Jenny, but it will fill in nicely over time. Get a lot of that cleared out. I love hanging baskets. I feel like they take a lot of time and energy, so I don't typically have a whole bunch of them in my garden. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and work it to one edge over here. Get that creeping Jenny, making sure that it's flowing over the side right there. All right, and then I'm going to come over with a verbena on the opposite side. And this verbena really needs to be trimmed out. So let me see what I got going here. Probably some of the good stuff I'm going to end up trimming out too. But oh yeah, like I just took out a whole bunch. It's okay. It will fill back in. I should have cut these back earlier in the spring season, and then they wouldn't be so scraggly looking. But they'll still fill in really nicely. And there's already a lot of new growth from the base of the plant. Actually, I might take it back even further. This is going to look intense, y'all. And just take those back for now. And really just kind of let it focus on putting in some new roots and such. So I'm going to come opposite the trailing Jenny, or the creeping Jenny, sorry. Work in my verbena, just like that. Doesn't look awesome, but it will later on. Okay, and now that we've done that, I've gotten my main plants in. I'm going to backfill with lots of petunias. My petunias are in, their little 4-inch containers. So I'll deadhead where needed, but I'm really just going to be coming through and tucking these in really, really well. And I'll add additional soil as needed to make sure that all of the roots are covered, and then I've got soil worked into all the crevices. But I think there's going to probably end up being like 8 petunias in each of these. And I am going to deadhead where needed. Okay, these are called Lilac Ice. I think it's Lilac Ice Opera Supreme. And then I also think there's some of the Dollar Tree petunias are mixed in here too. We got a lot of petunias going on. All right, so I filled in that side really nicely. Let's go back to this side. How awesome is this? I grew all the petunias from seed, the nasturtium from seed. I'm repurposing plants. The only plants that I bought new are the lantanas. That's it. Bought those are the only ones I bought new. How awesome is that? And I have these big, gorgeous baskets. So exciting. All right, let's put one last Triumph in there. Go ahead and dead that. All right, let's move this one over and grab a new basket. Okay, that's what I call jam-packed. Let's get these watered. Okay, so you might be wondering why I'm watering before they hang out. Well, I really want to make sure that I get the soil settled in really good, and I really want to make sure that if any soil is going to flow over, it's going to flow over into the grass and not on everything below where these hanging planters are going. So really spending some time making sure I'm getting a good amount moisture in here working to the sides. Any additional soil that is loose and doesn't need to be there can run out. Just get everybody really rinsed off. And I'll come out here and do this probably 2 or 3 times before I actually decide to hang them up, just to make sure that they got a really good start to their watering. Okay, I totally forgot to tuck in my nasturtiums. So let me get those seedlings out. Oh. Just need 3, so I'm just going to put 1 in each one. And just kind of aiming for an empty spot. Okay, they look good. I mean, they look fine now, but man, once they fill out, they're going to be absolutely stunning. Look at this petunia. So pretty. These are going to look really, really good. And I'm set for summer. This creeping Jenny will do beautifully along with the verbena and the lantana for the summer. Looking good, and I've got my drip set up to all of them. I have 2 emitters in each container. They're adjustable emitters, so if I feel like they need more water or less water, I can make those adjustments. Okay, that was good. Glad to have those 3 done, and then the one that's in the front is more shade. So I'll do that at a later point in time, utilizing stuff specifically for shade. I did grow some begonias this year, and I think some of those might go in that front area as well. And for some reason, I thought Creeping Jenny can handle some shade, so maybe that will be tied in too. But it feels really good to have these done, and they're up and out of the way now, and they're just going to fill in and get more and more beautiful. I do want to point out that specifically for something like petunias, pruning is important. So if you want to go in and you feel like it's getting a little bit leggy, cut them back, maybe, half a foot or a foot, right above a set of 2 leaves, and they will begin branching out again. And then also, if you see like your plants are struggling, go ahead and remove a plant, cut one out. It's totally fine. That'll totally work. All right. I hope you guys enjoyed going through these 5 tricks that I use when I'm considering how to make my baskets and how to make them more beautiful and more full. Fertilization, watering, making sure that you're choosing the right plants for the right location, for the right shape that you're wanting. So many different aspects to consider regarding hanging baskets. So before you go spend the money on the plants for a hanging basket, really kind of contemplate and think about what's going to work well in your space. All right, y'all, as always, make sure you like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Let me know your thoughts on hanging baskets. Some people love them, some people hate them, some people think they're a huge waste of money. Let me know your thoughts on that, and be sure to check me out on my social media outlets, including Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. As always, she's a mad gardener or a decorator or anything else that she wants to be. Thanks, y'all.